when you're under this influence of these substances, you're using up to 90% of your brain. So you become a supercomputer. You also then get access to not 2,000 bits of information, because that's what your ego is keeping it to limited so you don't freak out. You actually get to 2 million bits of information they're actually passing into you. So with higher computing power, with 2 million bits of information, access to the knowledge and the grid of life and to the universe and to other sources, you can come to conclusions and see things in those 12 dimensions that are not capable without this substance that allows you to get to that state. People don't know what freedom is until they become free of their own ego. That is the most powerful thing in the world, and probably 98% of people never achieve that in this lifetime.
This is the Human Future Podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology and spirituality with some of the world's brightest minds. Together, we paint a vision of the desirable future and discuss the actionable steps to make that vision a reality. And now, without further ado, let's begin. Welcome, Juan. Thank you for joining Human Future Show. Excited for our conversation. Why don't you share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you do it in the shorter. You don't have to give me the full life story, but just for people to understand who is in front of me.
Who you are, what you do,
and why you do it.
All right, and we're recording now, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Juan Betancourt. I'm a Cuban American from the Washington, D.C. area. I've lived in Miami 15 years. I also spent 20 years outside the U.S. And I am an entrepreneur. Someone who learned entrepreneurism, definitely not a natural at it. I have failed for about 8 years, and it seems like this is the year that we're taking off and succeeding. So I guess maybe that's also very typical entrepreneurial.
Yep.
And we at Human Intelligence, my company, are taking an industry called psychometrics and all the insights around that, and coaching and leadership and training and collaboration, interpersonal conflict, and finding a way through technology to bring that to all employees in the corporate world, big, large, small companies, so that everyone can have their own personal coach with AI, and in workflow get tips and coaching on how to lead, how to train, how to work together, and even more powerful concepts around the culture of companies and what's going to work from a performance of a manufacturing plant to acquiring companies and why they will integrate well or not. So it's really, infusing consciousness and emotional intelligence through AI in a fun way for all employees. And that is the future of what it means to be a human at work. And it's the first AI that will make work more human.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely would love to dive deeper into all of those topics. As I was doing a little research on you, so you basically had a transition from kind of like a profit-driven leader to heart-led leader at some point. Could you tell me how did that happen? What was the catalyst for that?
Yeah, I was, the Cuban American kid trying to, impress my parents and the Cuban community. And we're very similar to like Jewish people, where like we thought we were the greatest ever, and now we got to keep it up. We lost it all. And so, top of my class in high school, top soccer player, top basketball player, top track runner, could play at any school in the country in any one of those three sports. And then went to Harvard and then going to Wharton Business School. Left side brain guy. There's black and white, right and wrong. Never touched drugs, cigarettes, or alcohol until I was like 25 years old, and only alcohol at that point. Very left side brain, linear thinker. And everything was about potentially getting powerful in corporate and making money as a result. And at the age of 40, I actually moved to Miami, ironically, and as the Bible or some spiritual book says, you get consciousness and wake up consciously at 40. And it was that case with me, ironically. And met a woman who, although the relation didn't work out, she gave me the greatest gift ever, which was introduction to the world of psychedelics and ayahuasca and other plant medicine in intentional form, not to party. I've never been that guy. And even though I never tried marijuana and never will and don't care about those other things, I became someone who started to use plant medicine and psilocybin and ayahuasca for greater creativity. And the most powerful thing I took away was moving away from living and thinking and being in my head to living and thinking and being in my heart, and letting that drive most of my decisions around day-to-day business, career, and love. And that was a major inflection point in my life. And from 40 on, although I lived a great life before 40, I thought I was probably top 1% in love and happiness and all those things. Maybe not money. I was okay. I wasn't like rich or anything. I didn't realize that my life was black and white. And now seeing the world through my heart, I see a much more rich and colorful and engaging world that I'm now part of and understand at a much deeper level.
Interesting. So you didn't have like this idea of I hit the rock bottom, I don't know where to go from here. You thought your life was going pretty great, and then you just stumbled upon through your partner, ex-partner, onto this psychedelic world. And
that's a really good catch. Yeah. Most people who do those kind of plants are rock bottom or having problems. And I remember going my first couple journeys where like I'm looking around thinking, oh my God, everybody here's screwed up. Like I don't want to be around these people, because I was blessed where all my friends were successful and I was successful. Yeah. You know, and I always believe don't fix what's not broken. So don't put substance in your body if you're a great athlete. Don't take any kind of substance that could hurt your brain. And what was fascinating was there might have been, and for those who don't know me, I was like the mayor of New York. I mean, I would throw parties for thousands of people. Like this guy who wrote the book, The Tipping Point. What's this guy's name? Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah. So Malcolm Gladwell, he actually met me a couple times, and he wanted to write a book about me because I knew more people than like his connector. I was like the connector before the connector. Some people call me Facebook before Facebook. And in the, by the time I was 20, I had 20,000 people in my address book. Like not Facebook. I'm pretty old, so there's no internet or mobile phones. Business school for me, right? Oh. And so I knew a lot of people, and there might have been 5 people on the planet that I had met that I thought, wow, they're actually living a better life than me. Okay. So I tried these plants from a place of, I don't need anything. I'm already at the highest vibration a human being can be. Right. And what I realized was I was comparing against humanity and not against what's possible for me and what's possible for everyone. Yeah. And it was interesting. I only tried it because I was scared crapless, right? I left the last will and testament in my house. I mean, I was like left the address for my parents in case something happened. The police found my body dead with my organs cut out. They would know the people who got me there. I was, having doubts about this woman. Like, is she part of a cult? Like, is this all a trick? Are they all actors? Right? Because they let me observe for two different ceremonies. I'm like, maybe all these people work together and they're all like, this is all an act. But they want me to do it so they can cut my organs out. I mean, I was, my mom had me commit. Like, if I met someone who did a drug, I would never talk to them again. Right. Like, I mean, I was judging and, I had.
But it's surprising that you were open to doing it then.
Because at the end of the day, the greatest things in life, and now I can say I didn't know it before, but the greatest things in life that come to you are through trust. From trusting strangers to trusting your spouse, to trusting the process, yourself, to trusting the universe, to trusting yourself, trusting feeling uncomfortable. Trust is the portal to all learning. And I did always believe in God, not in a religious way. I am Catholic, but I stopped going to church after confirmation class. Yeah. But I remember just trusting that my life was so awesome. I was like, God set me up. Like, I had great parents. I didn't have trauma as a kid. Like things always worked out. I was lucky. Like, I always was guessing the numbers. And I was like, I believed in what I now understand it to be pronoia. Most people believe in paranoia. Like, oh, everybody's out to get me. Nothing works for me. I'm unlucky. I always believed that my life was lucky and I had pronoia. And like the universe was always trying to help me. And it's actually a phrase that actually is true. There's a word called pronoia. Yeah. And so I just trusted God. And I was like, God, if God had me born to parents who told me that drugs were horrible, and that got me through my first 34 years and made me great. And I meet a woman who might be my wife one day and I'm falling in love with her. Maybe God wants me to try this. Why would God have me be this woman? Let me just trust the process. Maybe this is what God wanted me to see. And I witnessed in 2 ceremonies, at least 5 or 6 miracles that I thought even great actors can't be that good. Like, these people downloaded insight and understanding that had to have been 500 to 1,000 years of knowledge. And in one night, the next day, they downloaded they were new people. They were downloaded the wisdom of the universe, of God. Yeah. And I was like, whatever they saw, I need to go in and see that. And boy, did it not disappoint. And 15 years later, I've done over 300 ceremonies. I've brought over 10,000 people into that kind of work. And it is the most transformational experience any human being can have.
Do you remember one of the most memorable one? Yeah. It's probably the first one, though. Like the earlier ones, for sure.
I mean, of 300, I would put 100 of them as the most memorable. Okay. No experience will ever be the same. If you have 8 hours with God and you can ask any question you want, your first experience, you're going to have some question about what is God? What's the universe? Why do I exist? Like, then and you get that answered, and you can chew on that for a year, and you still don't have enough to integrate it all. The next time you go in, are you going to ask the same question? No, you're going to ask a different question. And so to ask the same, so every experience is different because it's intentional, and you'll get the answer to any question you have. And even when you ask a question and it's a dark, black, no experience for 8 hours, that's also an experience that you've never had. And so there were better ones than others.
Were you ever, have you ever received an answer that you didn't even know that there is such thing to ask? Like you didn't even have that question.
There are experiences you have that there's no language as a human being on this planet that you can even articulate the next day to people what you saw and experienced. So not even, there's no question that. There's aren't questions to capture what you're about to see, and you can't even bring back and articulate what you saw. You can have the vibration and the experience, and you carry it with you, and you are a different person, but you'll never be able to articulate to someone why or how.
I like this analogy.
Like there's not physics on this planet today that can explain what you just saw.
Maybe not even physics, but conceptual, interpretation. There's not enough concepts to play around with.
Correct. If there's 3 dimensions here, there's 12 dimensions there. And you're able to use all of your brain. Today, most humans only are using 5 to 7% of their brains. That's not my opinion. That's just, they measure it, they look how much activity there is. When you're under this influence of these substances, you're using up to 90% of your brain. So you become a supercomputer. You also then get access to not 2,000 bits of information, because that's what your ego is keeping it to limited so you don't freak out. You actually get the 2 million bits of information that are actually passing into you. So with higher computing power, with 2 million bits of information, access to the knowledge and the grid of life and to the universe and to other sources, you can come to conclusions and see things in those 12 dimensions that are not capable without the substance that allows you to get to that state.
I like this phrase of wrapping the language around something. And if you can't wrap the language around it, then you can't bring it back with you. It's almost like a net.
You can't come back as a teacher. You can bring it back with you as an experience that you can now live it, but you can't explain it. But you aren't going to be able to tell someone or teach someone or explain to them how it is or how it works.
Right.
Like there was one thing, I brought back one journey, like I was given the whole book on the vibration of words and the knowledge around the weight of the word, right? And I think there's a phrase called the weight of the word. I don't know if I get it right. So just like there's kilograms and ounces, words have weight.
Different weight.
And if you hear someone who survived their Holocaust and hear them talk about it versus someone who teaches it, who just read about it or interviewed first source, the vibration of the experience, if the person experienced it, they could say the same exact thing as somebody who studied it, and who's a world expert in it. The weight of the word of the actual person who knows it because they experience it is a heavier word. And you will experience that when you meet people who are experts. The weight of their word, whether it's spirituality or science or literature, the weight of the words, you feel it. And actually there is a mechanism potentially that's going to happen in this world where you can measure word and weigh it so that, for example, when you read a book, some books are well written from certain experiences, and the weight of the word and understanding the language and explaining concepts, the weight of those words and how to do it weighs more in a way. Like literally there'll be a weight where you'll be able to put books in and literature and any writing into a system, a computer, and AI will be able to grade it. Instead of having to read 1,000 manuscripts as a movie producer, you'll just put 1,000 manuscripts in the system and it'll say, these are the 2 movies that will resonate, literally like the weight of the word, resonate a vibrational reaction from humanity. And so everyone who, you'll be able to understand who the best teachers will be, who the best movies will be, the best books. So it'll be a much more efficient way of determining quality writing, teaching, speaking, because you'll be able to measure the weight of the word. Dude, I could have, I could have become a world expert on this thing and I knew nothing about it. And it was 3 hours, 4 hours in this journey. And I was just being shown this whole world about the weight of the word and how things resonate. And why words have impact and don't have impact.
Is it the same as meaning? Like how meaning
as well as meaning? Because the weight of the word leads to more meaning. Like the way you say a word and is the weight of the word, and the meaning of that word depends on how you say it. It's all intertwined. And I was shown at a molecular level how all of that works.
Like, wow.
I had over 100 journeys where I became a world expert in something that nobody's ever discovered yet. I mean, I could spend my life going after patents for all these things. I have journals and journals.
You do. You've
journaled it all. But you know, at the end of the day, I realized it. And I believe me, when you start doing this kind of work, you want to go and be like, I'm going to start a company. But then I realized, no, it's just great that I have that vision, that insight, and that's for me to understand and know. And maybe somebody will discover this life. Maybe my next project will be one of these things. But like, you just get access to the future of what it's like to be in the future of where society's headed, and you just understand at a deeper level every single thing that happens in life. Like, I had one journey where I'm sitting there watching fishes, how information passes telepathically between two human beings.
Okay.
So picture two people. I'm sitting here in this journey, and there's person A, so let's say a woman named Mary, and person B, a guy named John.
Yeah.
And we all have had that moment where we look at somebody and there's a recognition that I understand you. Yeah. Like, you know, you roll your eyes and there's a packet of information, technically, literally, that somehow came from person A, physically apart from person B. And so this one journey was spent looking at different people in the journey, other people, and how they were communicating, not just with words, but with
body language, right?
And so body language, but specifically how packets of information are delivered telepathically. Because when you're in journey, you can actually get thoughts, not just like, oh, it looks like they're this, or like they will tell you a phrase and you'll hear it, which not in ceremony, that doesn't happen. I've never had a telepathic ability. Like I've guessed things, but I don't know if that's telepathy. And it's also a guess, and 1 in 1,000 you are going to guess.
I've
probability tells you will, right? And so I'm seeing these two people, and they were having a conversation telepathically. And in journey work, you can have people actually communicating, like full-on conversation. And they were probably 7 feet away, and I saw them like, and they were just, and I saw it happening. And it was like, one person was new, the other person was like mid experience. And it's when you do start to communicate telepathically in a journey, I mean, it's like, you feel like you have a superpower. It's like, what was that movie where the guy could see things in advance? Not Born Identity, I don't know. But there was this movie that, so I see these two people getting traction on this experience that some people have in journey, not everybody, but, and I'm like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden the universe is like, watch this. You want to see how it works? Sure. Show me. And I'm sitting there and I see, and I'll try to describe it. So person A, let's say Mary, she sends a packet of information over there. In that packet, it's like a drop of water. Imagine a body of water drops out of it. You follow it slow motion. And from her eye, not from her fingers, not from her head, from her eye, a bubble, like a round little translucent bubble.
Like a thought form comes out or something.
Comes out of her eye. And is going through the air slowly. And everything's in slow motion. The whole room is in slow motion. And I'm seeing this little packet of information going slow motion. Everybody, like other people, I can feel her standing, you know, and there's stuff happening. The music's like, you can hear a little bit of it. And this packet's slowly going through. And then I got to go inside the packet. And in the packet, it's like hundreds of concepts and ideas and lines of code. And it's all of your thoughts and everything around that made that thought. Because it's not just a sentence, it's all the history that ever made those words meaning. Like and that piece of information is going, and the person's receiving it, and they don't see it yet, right? They don't see the bubble, the little ball. And finally it goes into their eye, and all of a sudden it shows the information going into their head and going through all their brain, and all of a sudden coming to a conclusion of like, oh, these were telling me this. And to see it in slow motion. And understand what the packet was, and then to see the person send back a piece of packet back to them and watch it. And I was watching it. It was crazy. And imagine 100 ceremonies, and every ceremony being as wild or wilder than that.
In that example, when people don't see each other directly, do you think that's still how that works? Well, first of all, do you think that's actually how that works?
Well, that I'm getting insight into, but there's telepathy where you're looking at somebody, and there's telepathy where you're talking to people in another room, or your dead relative who's coming to give you things. That's where you're just connected, where the portal is just allowing you to connect direct. I think there is direct connection.
Maybe this is one channel of connection is through your eyes and transferring packets, but there's other ways of connecting.
There's other ways to connect, for sure. I think it's more common the other way.
Yeah, I always thought that your eyes are portals into your soul.
The windows of your soul.
Yeah.
If you take pictures of people when they're babies at 5 years of age, 5 months years of age, and you look at them when they're 89 or about to die, the only thing that hasn't changed at like that distance where you are the eyes. Everything else weather's really bad. Now, microscopically, your eyes also weather, and you can look at details of the eyes. And there's a whole thing called irisology, which actually you can look at someone's eye and see exactly the organs that are destroyed. And so you can see someone's health, like a doctor, through one's eyes. And I've had that done, and it's actually unbelievably accurate.
Oh, that's very
It's called irisology. But if you're not using a microscope, the eyes are the only thing that don't weather and look the same as when you're born.
So like a naked eye, it looks like, wow, they're pretty
because your
similar.
soul doesn't change. You are who you are.
Right.
Now, how your soul manifests through the animal, the human that it takes over in the womb, right? That changes dramatically. Because right, either the soul ends up managing the human body, the animal that it took over in the womb, like a rider on a horse, and it's able to command it, or the horse is still running wild and the rider, the soul, has no control. And so, you can see very clearly with human beings by 20, by 30, by 50, by 90, if the soul actually learned how to manage this animal that it took over early on.
Man, with all of the notes, are they like handy somewhere? You know where they are, like those notebooks?
Yeah, I typed them up.
You typed them up.
Yeah,
they're already
in a
digital
journal,
form.
and then I would type them up. Yeah.
How many of like hundreds of pages?
Hundreds of pages.
And it's just you're the only one who mainly read them.
Yeah, and if I die one day and they all go delete it doesn't matter. Like,
can we please release them before that moment? We don't have to wait.
I don't know, for some reason, like when I first started doing this kind of work, I was like, oh my God, I got to share this with the world.
Yeah,
I got to publish this.
Yeah,
like there's literally stuff in there that we would joke in journey work, and it wasn't just me. Other people had also some nights where like everybody's around them in a circle.
Yeah,
like, oh my God, they're channeling this through me, and they just sit there and they're just channeling knowledge and just stuff that they're not experts at, but now they're experts. And we're all like, oh my God, that's why that happens. And so I don't know. It's out there for everyone to discover. It's there. It's going to be there forever. And if it has, like, everyone will access it. Like,
but wouldn't you care, man, about potentially participating in speeding up the process of evolution? I don't know if that's actually what's happening.
Great question.
Yeah.
Because when you do this work, you realize there is no time. So the concept of speeding up evolution, there's no speeding up. There's no front, back, up or down.
Okay.
There's no time for your soul.
Yeah. And
you're understanding how everything works. You have infinite time. You have the rest of infinity to learn it all. There's no rush.
Yes.
There's no need to teach other people. Okay. Everyone's going to learn it when they're ready to learn it.
Okay.
Society and humanity will learn these bigger things.
Yeah.
When society and humanity is ready for it. Like, because I used to be like, consume fast, learn fast, grow fast, and get to the next level, and teach others and bring others along, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
There's no time. There's no beginning and end.
But then, if you fully embrace this idea, then your desire to do anything goes away.
No, you just
because there's no urgency.
No, your desire and curiosity are always there. You just don't stress about the time to get it done. Like, I'm building a company right now. It's been 8 years.
Yeah.
My human brain, right? My human side says, what the fuck? It's taken forever. This is such a waste of my time. My soul says, this is the most fulfilling thing you've ever done. You've learned more than ever. You could potentially change the world.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it doesn't matter. The journey and the process of this experience has been the best thing that you've ever done. Right? The things that your voice, that is your soul, and the things that your voice, that is your human animal, they sound the same in your head, but they're two different voices, which are from different sources. The way they measure things and conclude are completely different. And one of the things that the journey work and this plant medicine does, it allows you to become a third-party observer and know when the voice is your animal that lives in low vibration, fear, jealousy, worried about dying one day and time and getting things done, and your soul, which is infinite, abundant, and doesn't have a care in the world and never gets upset, and knowing which voice is which so you can control the animal. And then knowing that there's a third voice, which is from outside your soul and outside your animal, which is information and content that comes from the universe. That not only do you get it during journeys, like the examples I gave you, you get it through meditation. And actually, there's no difference doing meditation than these journey work, except you're going a lot deeper in journey. But in meditation and even day to day, you'll get thoughts that you're like, what? That was a random thought. Those random thoughts are the universe and guides, or what do you want to call it, or God. I'm not going to conclude what it is. Giving you insights that you should kind of maybe not follow, but look into and pursue a little bit more. And there's a movie that made this famous. So the group that I work with in all this plant medicines work with these people in California who made a movie called Inside Out. And so when they started to see the beautiful things about this difference between the soul and the animal, and how you can regulate these different thoughts, they're like, God, not the whole world. The whole world is not going to do ayahuasca. The whole world is not going to, in the version we do, there's no vomiting. So like the moonshine version is the vomiting version. You can do it where it's like a nice Toblerone chocolate, no vomiting, 8 hours, and it's just pure delight, right? I've done both, but once you do the one where there's no vomiting and you're in 8 hours, you can go deeper, you can learn more, you can choose to laugh better. And so in those experiences, these people thought, God, how do we teach the world these insights that you can regulate yourself like a soul on a horse, like a jockey on a horse, and that you have these different conflicts in your own mind. And even though it sounds like, I think therefore I am, no, there's actually 3 different types of thoughts or sources of those thoughts. And so they came up to explain 2 of those sources in this movie Inside Out, where this little girl has these little characters in her head that are negative and jealous and mad.
The second version now, where my wife and I actually watching it.
Right? But there's also the ones that are just positive, and they're trying to fight and convince each other.
Emotions,
and that is exactly how you are able to see your own soul in your own body during these ceremonies. And when you see it enough, you can bring it back to the real world, where you don't have to be on 8 plants, and every day somebody can cut you off, and before you do this kind of work, you're gonna be like, what the hell? Now you're like, well, God, they probably had a really bad day, or someone never taught them manners. I have, real pity for them. Like, that's too bad. They're going to cause an accident. That's really, versus like road rage, right? Or your spouse says something that's very hurtful. Well, before it's like, why would they, like, they're hurtful, they're mean, like, or no, maybe they had a bad day, and you know what, I'm not going to react. I'm married to them, and they love me. Like, that's their ego acting out. I don't need to react to that.
One way sometimes what I do also, instead of saying, oh, they're angry, or they're a very angry person, you say there's a lot of anger in them. It's kind of like separating.
Right, because every soul is amazing. It's the human around that soul that sometimes keeps the soul away, and the ego dominates. This work with plant medicine really basically wrestles away the ego, not only the night you're doing the experience, but if you do it enough, you start to realize that without plants, you can get rid of the ego and train it, manage it, and put it in a box where you control the ego. Ego doesn't control you. And that's people talk about freedom, financial freedom, wealth freedom. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm on schedule freedom. People don't know what freedom is until they become free of their own ego. That is the most powerful thing in the world. And probably 98% of people never achieve that in this lifetime.
Yeah, I see it as like an untrained dog that wants to go all over the place, and then you put a tight leash, or you train the dog so it acts exactly how you
correct
it to. Yeah, it's crazy. I would certainly. Are you able to share some of those notes with anyone who might be interested in looking into them? Man, I'm sure there's a lot of gold in there.
Oh, there are billion-dollar companies in those notes. Oh, the things that I have seen will explain the way the world will be. But I don't know. I don't feel, I used to, the first few, I've done this 15 years. The first few years, I was like, oh, it's good. And I once had a chart of all the companies I would build and all the things I'd be solving across what industries. But I'm like, it became like a bird, and like, it's too big. It's way beyond me. It's too transformational. Like, it'll happen. Somebody else will download it. Because it's not, I tapped into and downloaded from the grid of knowledge. I don't own it. It's not mine. I just was able to peek in and see it and bring some of it back. Right. Other people will too. when it's time and it's ready.
Because I interpret it as it's my responsibility, whatever comes through me, it's my responsibility to communicate it or spill it out into the world and not just like create a barrier after which.
Maybe it'll happen in my next life, but my purpose in this life truly was human intelligence.
Yeah.
And that has been made very clear to me, and everything else I've tried has not worked out. Human intelligence didn't work out for a long time. Now it is working out. But when you find your purpose, you know that's your purpose. And so all these other things I know are not my purpose, because they would take decades to be developed and be realized. And I still have a couple decades left with this one purpose. And like, you can only build a family well with one person. You can only change the world with one company. I mean, granted, there are some people, but no, even look at Musk, look at Bezos. I mean, these are some of the most brilliant people in the world who somehow they downloaded stuff, right? And they also just built one company that's changing and they probably could have ideas to build 30 more.
Yeah,
I'm sure Musk has 100 companies that he could build and that are unique that nobody's ever thought of. He picked one, and now two, I guess. Right? There's a capacity of a human being and of a human body and of the construct of time of a human. Whereas those other ideas for the soul, if my soul's the only one that was seeing those, it'll bring it into the next life, right?
Basically talking about like our channel or like our ability to manifest. There's a certain channel, a certain throughput through which we can, like, a certain amount of attention, certain amount of life energy. But I think we can influence how wide that, its channel is, though, right? Your capability or your like resourcefulness or.
Oh yeah, I mean, some people have much more impact and effect on the world than others, and because of what you just said, they're able to throttle the human being and optimize that ability of that human being to absorb knowledge, to share knowledge, to communicate in a way with the weight of the word, in a way that impacts more people, that enlists and enrolls others to do things for them, to then create projects and companies. And so, I mean, no two humans, every two humans are capable of the same thing, but it's in this battle of the ego and the soul that allows humans to create greatness or do nothing. But we're all given granted, separate out people who have physical disabilities and mental disabilities, that's an exception. But without those, I think it's really the ego that limits people to be amazing or not, right? And that's, this work is what really, it battles down the ego, both physically and mentally, to the point where you have the freedom to paint whatever canvas you want and create whatever you want and manifest whatever you want.
Totally, yeah. So how did the idea, or how did the realization that human intelligence is what you're here to do?
So interestingly, I was making tons of money, more than I ever thought I'd make. Within 5 years, I probably didn't have to work again the rest of my life. I'm still working. I love work. I love doing things and solving problems. And I was a headhunter, or what they call a recruiter, and doing it for executives. So every search you make between 150 and 200,000. I had one search, I made $800,000. So this is for 2 weeks, 3 weeks of work. Right? You do 20 of these, you're making like $2-3 million, right? Working 20 hours a week,
amazing.
Living anywhere you want in the world. I mean, I was doing great stuff. This is all before I did ayahuasca. And nobody was going to tell me. And by the way, I was really good at it. Like, there's a reason people pay me that much money, and I was doing it so quick. Usually searches take 5 months. So there's a capacity that any one person can't do that many searches.
Right.
I figured out a way, and I was really good at it without jeopardizing quality, and having better quality, quicker searches. People pay a premium for that, right? And so nobody was gonna sit there and tell me that wasn't my purpose. I mean, I was just like, I found my thing. I even met the president of the largest firm in the world when I was 20 years old in college, because somebody in Office of Career Services said, "Young man, everything I know about you in this 30-minute, career session, and I wish I knew this woman's name, I'd go and send her a check." This is 1990. She goes, "You need to talk to Leonard Pfeiffer IV. He's the president and CEO of a company called Korn Ferry." And by the way, I went to Harvard, and nobody in the world knew Korn Ferry, Heidrick and Struggles, Russell Reynolds. I mean, these are like firms that are all white people, Anglos. My name's Juan Betancourt. There were no black people in these firms. And this is like, for all the CEOs were all male and white at the time, right? So people, Leonard Pfeiffer IV, of course he was the CEO.
Right.
And you need to meet this guy. So I drove down or took a train down to DC. That's where he was, that Christmas break. And on January 10th, 1990, sophomore year, I met with this guy, took notes. And he was like, wow, the Office of Career Services at Harvard has never sent me anybody. And I was like, I don't even know what headhunting is or recruiting and executive search. What is it? And she says, I'd be great at it. And he goes, and he explained to me what it was. And it sounded like, wow, it sounds awesome. I love meeting people. I love learning about people and like finding fit. And all right, cool. And so this guy was like, it pays really well. And then at the end, he goes, but whatever you do not go into it after college. I'm like, what?
Right.
He just said,
that's how I did. Yeah.
He goes, you need to go become international.
Yeah.
Business, executive search, all these, in 1990, companies are becoming global. They're going to need people who speak different languages, who understand cross-cultural challenges. So go get experience working internationally. Go become a business leader, run a P&L. Because to be a recruiter who's actually run a company and run a P&L, you will be able to interview people much better than people who are just recruiters who've never been in the job.
P&L is?
P&L, profit and loss. Like actually you have management responsibility for a business and you will get fired if it's not profitable and agree, right? Yeah. And then if you want to be one of the best in the world and get the respect of everybody where you're hiring CEOs, become a CEO. So once you've made it globally as a corporate titan, then become a recruiter. I'm looking at this guy thinking he has two heads. Like, why the fuck would I go and become a CEO of a big company and become a global leader to then go and become a recruiter? And I actually did go and do all those things. And I speak 5 languages like English, and I worked all over the world. I left the US at 22. I speak French fluently, Spanish fluently, Italian fluently, Portuguese fluently, worked in Germany, China, all these countries, right? Dubai, and ran a $500 million company, right? It was one of the largest importers in America, like did everything. And everybody thought I was so successful and I was making money, right? And then I announced to the world I was quitting to become a recruiter. People couldn't believe it. Like my parents, my friends, Juan, why would you do that? That's so embarrassing. Like you went to Harvard and Wharton and you became a CEO. Like, I'm like, because I knew that my whole life that I'd be really good at it and I've always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And so I started August 12th, 2010 in New York City for Heidrick & Struggles. And I searched on Google. There was no internet when I met Larry Pfeiffer IV, but I was like, where the hell is that guy that I met in 1990, 22 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yes.
And when I kept with me all those 20 years, the piece of paper with the notes.
Wow.
So I pulled it out, I scanned it, had it as a PDF. I was like, I'm going to find this guy and let him know that after 20 years, I did what he said.
Yes.
And I became a CEO, learned languages. I'm going to show him the thing and show him what I did.
Amazing.
And I want to let him know, thank you for your advice. And so I found him.
Yeah.
I sent him an email with that I had met him, what day I met him. And he was, he had, I guess, a health issue, what I read in the line. So he left Korn Ferry and he started his own boutique firm in DC and he was still doing well, but not like a big corporate, a big company. And so I said, if you ever want to talk or chat, I'd love to learn more from you. You're the reason why I'm in executive search. Wow. Thank you so much. This is my first day here at Heidrick & Struggles, and I'm a junior partner, but a partner. And I was the youngest partner they'd ever hired. So, I mean, I was like, within like literally 30 minutes, the phone rings and like, I had just started. So like, I'm like, who's calling me? Juan, hi, this is Leonard Pfeiffer IV. I just received your email. Son, you're going to do really well in this job. Because the fact that I went off and did everything he said.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I ended up going back and visiting him. And it's funny, there was an inflection point after I hated New York. I didn't like working there.
Good.
And I wanted to move to Miami. And so basically there was a point where and everyone, I mean, there's only like 200 partners in each of these firms and everybody knows each other and all the offices are like in the same 2 buildings. Yeah. And so when you walk into one building, there's what's building in Grand Central Station where like this subway is, and there's like these escalators out and like, Korn Ferry's there and like restaurant. And my firm, Heidrick, wasn't in there, but like if you're there and you're a recruiter, people know that you're maybe going to go work for one of their, and these firms would steal each other, the partners. And like, I was so scared to get fired. Like, you don't want to get fired from one of these firms, so then you'll never get a job. You're like blacklisted. So I go and I get to the Grand Central Station. I just want to get in the elevator, go up to the floor, do my interview with the new firm that had all opportunity for me in Miami, which is Korn Ferry. Yeah. So I was at Heidrick. I was going to go to Korn Ferry. So I talk, privately, and I just want to get up there. And I get to and there's a check-in, right? Because it's a 9/11 had happened already. And it was New York City. And so there's a line of like, there's 8 of these people sitting there checking people in at the main, desk. 8, and they're like 10 people deep. And I'm sitting there 10 people deep, 8 lines, and I'm waiting. And it's like 30 minutes. And I'm like, someone's going to recognize me. Yeah. So I get to the very front, and the line next to me is moving. We get to the front, and they're like, "What's your name?" I'm like, whispering. Yeah. What? Like, I'm like, okay, give me your ID. Who are you visiting? What? Corn Ferry. And she shouts it out, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And the guy next to me, this tall dude, 6'2", white old guy, like 8 years old or 75 years old. Still in a business too, so still working, but kind of slow. Yeah. He looks over and he looks at me, and I'm like, great, I probably just got fired. This is probably somebody who works at Corn, right next to my old firm. And I had doubts about staying in search, staying in New York. I was just one of those inflection points, right? Yeah. And so I turn the corner, and this guy turns the corner with me by accident. There's like 4, you different elevators by floor. Yeah. And he goes, sir, you're going to Corn Ferry. Who do you know there? And I'm like, God, I do not want to say where I know. Right? Yeah. I go, well, I don't really know anybody. I have an interview there, right? Because I can be a candidate. Yeah. And he goes, oh, well, my brother used to work at Corn Ferry for a long time. Yeah. He's like, maybe you know him. I'm like, well, I doubt it. I never worked there. He goes, well, no, he was the CEO and chairman of Corn Ferry. He's a pretty well-known guy. I'm like, who's your brother? Yeah. Leonard Pfeiffer IV. Can you imagine, out of 20 million people who've passed through, that the universe gave me a sign that this move to this other firm to get me to Miami was exactly what I needed to do. I got in that elevator. I didn't give a who saw me. Wow. I was like, the odds and the probability that the guy from 20 years ago who got me into search, and now 20 years later, I'm doubting search and doubting moving to Miami. Wow. And in the lobby of this Grand Central Station, his brother is there to give me the message.
Were events like that ever happened to you before? Like,
my life, the universe has always given me signs. Yeah, but I never really trusted them, right? And so ever since I did journey work, now, every week I'll get a sign like that. I know it's the universe telling me. Yesterday I was on a Zoom call with a woman who's an amazing woman, knows she was on the private island with Richard Branson last week, 20 people for a week. She's like rolls at that level. And we're talking and having a good time. And, it was like a random LinkedIn connection. And I look at her, I go, you know what? Your energy, you must be a Pisces. And I'm thinking, let me look at her right now. We have a lot in common. And so I look up in LinkedIn, it had her birthday. And she's March 1st. And I go, I'm March 11th. So we have the same neuromod. So not only 3-1 and 3-11, numerology, there's something that we're both 5s, which is very rare. And then it turns out that she's like, and you know what's funny about us? She goes, my great-grandfather was a Betancourt from the Azores Islands, which are next to the Canary Islands, where my family was from. She's like, we're probably also related. And then she started telling me a story how when people look up her name, there's this beautiful actress that everybody laughs when she comes on because she's not as attractive as this actress. And I go, did you actually search my name on Google? Because I had the same problem. And if you actually search Juan Betancourt on Google, you get the top model in the world is a Cuban guy who's drop dead gorgeous. And people always come on my Zooms like, you don't look like the guy Juan Betancourt on Google. So like just little fun stuff too like that. It happens all the time. A week ago, my friend, I asked her a question, a woman named Heather, she has 3 kids. She lives in Miami 10 years. And I asked her a question, we hadn't talked in 3 months. And I just sent her a text about something, and she responded, isn't that funny? That's crazy. I'm like, how are you? Oh yeah, I'm an empty nester. My kids are now in college. Now I'm just with Keek. I'm like, yeah. And I wrote back, isn't it amazing that your daughter, that your 2 daughters, they're twins, are now like flying? Like you've brought them to this certain point and they're out there flying. Yeah. And on their own. Yeah. And Heather writes back, within like 10 seconds, she goes, Juan, that's really weird you wrote that. Yeah. You know what my daughter did today? She jumped out of a plane and she did skydiving for the first time in her life, 10,000 feet in Colorado. The day that I've never ridden, your kids are flying. Yeah. So this kind of fun stuff, a play with the universe and just having access to information that, can I control it? Like the movies where I'm going to say, he's going to do that. No, hell no. And I don't think I ever will. But there's definitely a connection I have now that is way beyond me, and my animal human body is capable.
willpower. So you're saying that you have no influence whatsoever, or there's some things that you can control?
I'm saying getting the insight to ask a question is usually fed to me. My human thought as an ego, I want to anticipate what's going to happen to this person or what's going to come out of it. I don't think I'll ever be able to do that as a human being. Humans. But if the universe wants to have fun and do pronoia and give me information that I can use to my advantage or just for a fun moment to make life more enjoyable, the universe is very capable almost on a daily basis to provide me those insights that are not possibly in my own head. And whereas I'm not going to be able to call in those things when I want on ground.
Right. Yeah. But you do believe that the willpower, we do have a willpower, and it's like a muscle, and we can increase it potentially, and we're able to influence, like, there's a natural flow of things. Without our existence, it would probably still potentially exist, and willpower kind of tickles with it a little bit. And like,
let's say you were born to be a fireman, right? In the previous life, Between Lives, the book Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton, everybody in the world should read it. The spiritual book that everybody should read, much more than any other book. And I've read a lot of them. And in your life, you experience it. You can't review, improve, and learn from it until between lives. So you finish your life, you go between lives, and then you spend either a year, a decade, or 1,000 years reviewing your life. Some souls are slow, takes them a long time. Some souls get it like in a year. Some souls get it in like 2 weeks. And you review every major decision and what you did, and you learn from it. And then your group of soul friends, you have basically between 3 and 25 souls that basically advise you through the eternity of time. And they work with you to figure out, okay, what did you learn? What did you not learn? Okay, you're going back, you're ready. Here are 4 or 5 different types of lives you could have. You could be a quadriplegic at the age of 3. You could be a superstar. You could, are you ready for these different things? What are the different, and it's not like some ego's like, oh, I want to be a superstar and make money. No. There's lessons that every soul needs. And you pick the life, and you pick your parents, and you're born into that. Now, the problem is some souls, they go in with that assignment for learning, and they don't ever able to manage and master the horse, the animal, the human being, and they end up free will. The human being does have free will. An animal has free will. They end up, let's say they pick to be a firefighter and give back and see the tragedies of that and how it ruins phones, but give to society. And they end up being a race car driver because they just like fast. And that energy that makes them accept fires and making it up. And they can be a race car driver, and they might be really good at it, but they might never really reach full fulfillment and full joy and happiness as that race car driver. Whether they end up top 10 in the world or top 1,000 in the world, or end up failing miserably and committing suicide because they suck at it and can't support their family. But if they had been the firefighter, that's what they had picked, and there was all these things that they were supposed to learn, right? And if they did the wrong decisions, like, it's free will, they can do what they want. Just come back and do it over again. It's just like if you don't study at school, it's your free will, but you probably have to go back and repeat the grade. And when you're ready to study and do the stuff that you're asked to, you'll get to the next grade. And after college, it's not so structured, but it's the same setup. Same setup of learning in companies and what you're supposed to do in life, with family, with children. Like, it's
the
all
lessons will keep coming back until you
will keep right. Like like, you know. And it was this whole thing about suicide. Like, commit suicide, free will, commit suicide. Great, okay. You'll just come back and at the same exact level with if you didn't learn it, you're going to have the same challenge again next time. And then the next time you can figure it out. And usually they're going to coach and help you between lives. So before you come back, they're going to say, okay, well, we clearly didn't prepare him ready for this role. That was too much for them. God, the universe, whatever, will never pitch too much for a soul. Or if they do, and the soul checks out, and or the human checks out. The souls never check out, but the soul wasn't able to get the human not to check out, and the check out happens, then the soul comes back in the same context.
Wow.
And it's never ending. And all of that aggregated learning is actually, well, that's the universe, that's God. It's a system of learning where it's always advancing. And there's no end, there's no beginning, and God doesn't know where it's going to go.
How do you integrate all of this understanding with the 3D? Because oftentimes that's a little bit disorienting to understand that and also live a 3D life and do 3D things.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Puriel uses that was, oh my God. So when I first started to have access to this kind of information, I mean, I was thinking, oh my God, I want to become a tree hugging hippie. Oh shit.
Yeah.
I want to still function and perform and do things in business. And I don't want people to look at me like I have two heads. So, for 7 years, I didn't tell one, but this interview we're having, no way. For 7 years, there's no freaking way. But when Tony Robbins announces he does it, and the person who downloaded the Kabbalah said she did it, and the person who did the Enneagram was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and people say that Al Gore does it. I found that, all the Roosevelts do this, and the Kennedys are doing this for 30 years. And basically, like 7 of the 12 billionaires I've ever met do it. And Aaron Rodgers won his first Super Bowl and 2 MVPs after doing it, and blah, 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 blah. And it became like, who's not doing it, right? Then I was like, I can talk about it.
Right.
And so there was that, and it was like, I have access to all this information, and like, it's like this 4D world that I now knew, yet it's 3D. It was more like share it with those who would conceptually get it and wouldn't judge me. So if I had 5,000 people in the world I knew really well out of the 30,000 I know, or 50,000 I know, those 5,000 people, like roommates from college, best friends from high school, all the people I played soccer on, my junior high team, my high school team, my college team, my national team, right? All the people I basketball, like people who know me, like, spend hours with me every week. Every human being has like 5,000 of those people. To this day, maybe 500 of 5,000. So maybe 10% of people who know me well, I've ever brought it up to.
Right.
I've brought it up, and then strangers, I do bring it up to strangers if they say something that triggers me and I'm told and I'm given the message, it's okay, they need help or they're ready for this. And so I'll bring it up when it's told to me, this person needs to know about that process. And so one is, and even my friends, the 10% of the people I know well, I mean, there was a handful that I was like, out of giddiness and excitement, I was like, I called this one guy, I'm like, oh my God, Jesse, you got to hear about what I just did. It's right. And then there was another person, like there was like the go-to 4 people that, and one of them, I mean, literally, so I have 10 groomsmen. So all of them I told without them asking, without somebody telling me them. And one of them, he literally called my cousin, who was also a groomsman, and they're like 2 of my best friends. They all worked together after college. And later they told me that after I called both of them, they called each other and said, has Juan gone crazy? Did Juan lose his marbles? Do you hear what he's saying and what he wants us to do with? Because I asked him to do it with me.
Right.
And they were like, Juan's never done substance. He's the most pure guy in the world. He's the most stable human being we've ever known. We were crazy compared to him. Is he okay? He seems fine. He seems pretty happy, but like, this is like crazy talk.
For sure.
They have both been doing the work now for 15 years and their lives have been transformed completely. And before they did it, like me, were 2 of the most successful people I've known. So it was kind of like pick and choose based on who knows me well enough that they know Juan is not some drug addict and crazy person. Like if there was a phrase that used to go around, shit, man, if Juan has done it, it's got to be safe and it's got to be amazing because Juan would never put something in his body and ever try something, because Juan lived a good freaking life. If Juan says it's transformed his life and his life was freaking awesome, I've got to try that, whatever it is.
For sure. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man. I think that's potentially one of your sub missions is to tell that story, man, because it's powerful and it's I would suspect that will make a lot of people who are on the kind of on the edge of like,
and people who've never tried things like this, right? So, most of like the 5,000 people, 6,000 people I've introduced never have tried drugs, never tried marijuana, never tried a cigarette, never don't even drink alcohol. But they're like, wow, if Juan says it's okay, like Juan was like me and Juan swears by it. And it does borderline sound like a cult. Those whole, and I thought it was too. I mean, if you haven't experienced it, it sounds like a cult. But but like, it's not, it's the only thing in the world that makes it gets rid of all addiction. So you can't get addicted to it. You got to plan 6 months ahead. What addiction do you plan? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to spend the weekend 6 months from now. And, until then I'm fine. I don't care. Right. Like, so it's not addictive. It's not right now. I did it for 5 years every month, then 5 years every quarter. And then for the last 5 years, I do it once a year. Mm-hmm. And now it's just, I bring back the OG. There's like the original 40 of us who did it for like 10 years together. They all fly, they all live all over the world now. We all fly into one beautiful place, some mansion on some lake or some body of water. Sure. And we fly in the shaman and we do it together. And whereas in the first 5 years, you're just in a dark room, eye patches, earplugs, and you're kind of going in, but you just want to be with the universe and getting downloads. Mm-hmm. Now the downloads are less. Like now when I go in, like it just tells me like, Juan, don't go deep. This is to be with your friends. Go, there's somebody in the room that needs your help, who's new, shepherd them, be of service. Like it's not about you anymore. Like we've given you all the downloads you need. We've given you your company, because I actually downloaded human intelligence in a ceremony, and we've given you your wife. And I was, the one intention I had was like, if there was one challenge in my life was I had not found family and love. Mm-hmm. And so, it showed me how and when and how to be, and even timed when I would meet my wife, which was pretty damn accurate. And so now when I journey, it's like, hey, just experience other people. It's more of a community thing and experience. And so it's kind of like the most fun dinner party you've ever had in your life.
That's amazing.
Every year.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. With your 40 closest friends around the world who all have seen the other sides of the curtain, who've all seen the other sides of how it all works. Yeah. And so it's the deepest, most purest form of authenticity, of intelligence, of just people who breathe and vibrate pure soul and very little, if no ego. Amazing. And to be in a room with people like that, 30 or 40 from all walks of life, all levels of life. Yeah. And then we always bring of 30 or 40, 10 to 12 people, not more than that, who are new, who in the last year have learned about it, or one of us told them, so you can bring people, and we help them with it, and we get to watch their experience, which is also just beautiful to hold space.
Men and women, or is it men?
Men and women, yeah. Yeah, and people, when they have kids who are teenagers, they turn 18, they bring their kids. So we've seen the coming of age of 18-year-olds. Like I can't wait till one day my kids are 18 and share this experience with them. Yeah. I mean, it's just, but it's gonna suck to not be able to talk about any of the 4D world and any of the weight of the word and knowing how it all works, and not be able to explain to them, because they're going to see me as dad as like, wow, dad knows so much. And I'm just going to have to bite my tongue and just tell them to keep going to the Cartesian 3D linear thinking school and do it the way I did it. And, and all the limitations that current education have. And I'm going to have to support that and pay all the money to do it. Yeah. And know that my kids are going the wrong path until they turn 18. And then like the real portal will open for my children to change the world.
I can't wait for you to introduce them to that world, and I'm sure that's going to be an amazing chapter for them as well, and for you as well.
Yeah,
to
and
share that.
It's funny. Some of my friends, they'll have 3 kids.
Yeah,
Q will say no, that you're crazy, mom. I don't even want that's you're crazy, dog, mom. You're hippie, right? And one will do it, and it'll be interesting, because there's no guarantee that my children will want any access to that or even believe in it.
Right.
And I'm not going to force them to do it. It's the last thing somebody should do is tell people to do this work, right?
Of course, yeah.
People will have a calling. Most of the people come, they're like, Juan, there's the one guy, he's having dinner with me. It's 8 years after I've been doing this work. So I flew around the world to conferences. I met all the scientists who study it. I have white papers, pictures of people who did MRIs, but remember, I didn't want to invite one person telling you it was safe, right? Because here I was okay, I got these great experiences, but did I just destroy my brain too? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So traveled the world for a year, did all this research, right? Literally didn't work for a year, just learning about it. And I realized it's first of all, it's legal by the Supreme Court, 2006, so it's not illegal. I saw that it's completely safe. Yep. It's actually a chemical substance that your brain secretes every night you dream. So there's actually no difference between dreaming and doing this, except your soul goes up when you dream, but your conscious mind stays here as an animal. This work, it's the same process. Your conscious mind goes up in this 4D world, but your soul goes up to this 4D world, but your conscious mind goes with it and can bring it all back.
Amazing. Yeah.
So everyone is doing ayahuasca every single night when they dream, except they don't remember him. And so knowing all these mechanics of how it works, and I was like, okay, good, I'll share it to people. So I'm sitting there 8 years later. I'm probably one of the 10 most knowledgeable people in the country. I mean, I know more about it than even some shamans who are they do it because it's a part of their lineage. Right. And they know how to hold space, and it just flows through them, but they don't care about the mechanics, right?
Right.
It's like the coach who knows how to coach a soccer team who never played. I'm that coach. I can coach a team. I know how it works, but I never played, right? Like kind of thing.
Totally.
And so I was never a shaman, but I became really knowledgeable. And so this guy sits down, and I knew it in New York, and he sits down to me at this restaurant in Miami, and he goes, Juan, like this guy is, he's beautiful. He's super successful. He's smart. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he couldn't hold a relationship. And I always found him to be a nice guy, but conversation was limited. He wasn't so open, and it just, have you ever met somebody who's just kind of cold and just feel like they have no heart, like they're like a robot, like a neurosurgeon?
Yeah.
He was that guy. He was just like, he was a consultant and just a machine. And I loved hanging out with him, super smart guy, but like there was no passion, there's no heart. And he's like, Juan, I've been talking to people in New York lately, and I saw this guy like once a year maybe. And we're having dinner, and he's like, you've traveled the world, you've seen a lot, you talked to a lot of people, you live a really colorful life. And he had no idea that I'd do any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
He goes, what? Are there any self-help or coaches or things that you do or have done or have you come across in your travels and readings that have helped get you to your next level, whatever you define that as? And I'm like, well, it's interesting, Martin. There's a couple things I've done, one specifically, but give me more examples. He goes, well, I want to get married, and I feel like I'm not in touch with my heart, and like I can't hold a relationship because women want to feel connection. I can't connect. I've never cried in my life. Like I conceptually I understand the concept of crying and of feeling, but I don't really think I'm connected. Like it's kind of weird. Do you understand? I go, yeah. He goes, there are about 3 people who don't know each other. In the last 6 months, all 3 of them said, I should try something called ayahuasca. And I almost spit my food out. This is the last guy in the world I would ever think would say the word ayahuasca in his lifetime.
Of course, yeah.
And so he's also of Germanic background.
Very conservative.
Very conservative, right? Like very structured, right? Yeah. And so this guy, he says, have you heard of this thing called ayahuasca? 3 different people. I go, Martin, there are probably 20 people in this country who know more about it than me. I've never told you because I thought you'd probably disown me as a friend and like never talk to me again. But that would actually help you a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm doing a ceremony here in Miami in like 4 months. You should come down. It's totally safe. And I gave them I have like a whole curriculum of like 8 emails. It takes like 40 hours to read through it all. So videos. So I sent them my like 8 email curriculum that I send to everybody before they do it.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so, especially for people who don't trust this and are scared, right? It kind of science and information will, make you feel more
to calm their rational.
calm the animal, right? Right. Control, right? And so he came, he had an amazing experience. This is a guy who like within like 5 ceremonies cried again, or for the first time, as you can remember, was in touch with his heart. Within 6 months, found a woman, fell in love, got married. They both moved to Miami. Now they have 2 kids. And so happy and amazing.
Wow.
Right. And like,
that's amazing.
And same with a friend of mine from high school. He's called me up after 20 years, hadn't talked to this guy. He was like one of those 10 guys I knew all the time, smart guy. And he's like, Juan, I've been watching you on Facebook and your life and your LinkedIn. You just live such a rich life. He goes, I'm a lawyer, and he's the lawyer of a $20 billion company. I mean, we both went to public school. Like, he was an immigrant from the Caribbean, African-American guy, Trinidadian, black guy. And he's married, happily married. I met his wife, met the 2 kids. They're like 8 and 10. He goes, Juan, but this guy was the most buttoned up, anal retentive, control freak you'd ever, like, everyone knew he was going to be a lawyer in high school, right? And we were both top 10 in our class, right?
Yeah.
And like, he's like, Juan, I've been seeing your life. He goes, do you have any coaches or people who helped you understand? I go, well, no, I know specific coach, but I'm like, there's this thing that I try. No, and I won't say his name, but let's call him Charlie. His name's not Charlie.
Yeah, sure.
Charlie, what I'm about to tell you, and I know for a fact this guy has never tried substance, never tried alcohol in his life. We're the 2 guys in high school who never tried alcohol.
Yeah.
And I go, Charlie, what I'm about to tell you, I mean, you're going to think I'm a fucking quack, but I downloaded all like this amazingness that you think you see.
Yeah.
I downloaded it like in these ceremonies with this thing called ayahuasca and psilocybin. And he's like, what? You were doing drugs? I'm like, well, it's actually legal, the ayahuasca, and the group I work with. And you really like, I'm not saying you and your wife do it. He goes, and he's like, look, Juan, I don't want my, what did he say? He goes, my kids, I look at them, they're 8 and 10 and they're mini me's, and all the vibration of who I am, I'm just putting it into them.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be me.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be free and to do whatever they want and be successful. But I can see like I'm limiting them.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, so this guy went up to this place in New Jersey where my facilitator, shaman, works. He does it there. I flew up just for the day, the night, to just hold space for him.
Yeah.
And then later he went up and did his wife, did the same. And now they've been doing a couple, probably every 3 months for like the last 2 years, and it's transformed their life, transformed their relationship, their children, their jobs, their career. It's just, but look, out of 5,000 people, a third of people had zero experience. Zero. So this is not a panacea, download the universe and it's going to work for everybody. Some people's, their egos are way too strong to do the way that this group does it, which is not vomiting. And those people, after that doesn't work in this group, I'm like, you got to go do the T. You need to hit rock bottom. You need to get your face punched by the universe. And your ego is so strong that it's not going to let in this insight, this knowledge. So a third don't have any experience. A third have a good experience. They either quit some addiction, or they had insights to change their job, or to have a better relationship with their wife or spouse, or did some really fun insight about life. But I wouldn't say it's like taking them to like top 1% of consciousness.
I understand.
And then there's like a third who literally are now walking the earth as one of the top 1% most conscious people in the world.
Wow. So it sounds like there's so much impact that you can do by just doing this work, maybe promote, communicating, inviting people to ceremonies and impacting leaders so they can impact their
I think so now, like the group I work with, they're doing ceremonies with groups of YPO, Young Presidents Organization, groups of EO, companies now are sending executives on retreats in Costa Rica and in the US even to do this kind of work, because it leads to a dissolving of the ego. So that imagine it worked. Nobody gets defensive. Nobody thinks they're trying to destroy me, and everybody's working together a common goal. So it makes every leader better. It makes every leader understand each person better, and come to where every person's at on their team, every person on the team to work better together. So it guarantees a higher performing team, more collaboration. And the company that I was founded, Human Intelligence, I downloaded in a ceremony which basically said, you're going to bring consciousness to the world through people's work. And so I literally am now bringing this kind of consciousness, not through plants, but through the world's most advanced psychometric tool called Human Intelligence. And now we're actually agnostic to predictive index, Strength Finders, Hogan, and any other tool in the world. See, all these tools bring higher consciousness, self-awareness, and understanding others. But in a way like ChatGPT, where you can just ask a question about anybody, about my team. How do I manage this team? How do I train this team? How do I lead this person? Why are these two people having conflict? And then ChatGPT just writes the answer down so that everyone can work better together and everybody can be conscious at work. And so it's spirituality infused into all companies in one day for 100% of employees. Everyone gets their own spiritual, psychological coach called HT Coach, and it's all delivered through AI in your workflow, so you don't have to sign into some other app.
Could you explain a little bit more for those who have no idea what you're talking about? So basically, what is the problem, and how are you guys addressing it? Like, what's the mechanics of addressing the problem?
So many people in high school are blessed if that high school or that public school system allow them to take what they call a personality test. And it's fun. You get them to learn about yourself. And when you're in high school, like, oh my God, that explains this. And oh, I didn't know that about myself. And it's almost like astrology, but it's more scientific, right? And then in the business world, and then you never look at it again. And then in the business world, if you're on the fast track to get promoted as a manager, companies use these for either recruiting and hiring people, or for developing people. And when you get promoted to be a manager, it's good to know and have a workshop with your team and understand each person's behaviors, each person's motivators, what drive the behaviors, their work styles, and how the environment gives somebody energy or takes it away, and someone's communication styles. And if you can understand all those things, you can really connect with your employees, you can connect together, and you can raise the vibration of collaboration, the vibration of resonance, from everything from writing to understanding. And just like you do that with your spouse and someone you love, imagine if an entire organization, a team, division, and a company can all, within hours and minutes, get to that level of understanding that it took 5 years with your spouse. And so that is the holy grail of higher performing teams, higher performing leaders. And there have been tools and consultants and coaches and functions in companies under HR called leadership development, talent management, lead L&D, and coaching that have poured billions of dollars into workshops and into offsites called team building offsite leadership. And it's usually only for the rich and the famous and the top 10%. And usually those people get paid, the consultants and coaches get paid $50,000, $100,000 for 2 hours a month for the whole year. And it's only for like the top 2%.
Yeah.
And the reality is even those top 2%, it's all theory and it's out of work and it's not realistic and it's not practical, not personalized to the actual dynamics at the moment. And so they go back to work and actually never use any of it. And it is the biggest waste of corporate investment in the world. And I'm not saying get rid of all these people. I'm saying use technology to take these people in the 22nd century where now they can not only impact those 30 executives, but the 30,000 employees every day and be a coach that helps facilitate using a tool like this so that everyone gets their own AI coach where they literally have everyone either upload the test they've already taken that they never use anymore into the human intelligence platform or take the human intelligence test, which is 10 minutes, which measures behaviors, motives, work styles, leadership styles, communication styles, and learning styles. And now through a fun, like we've all been on ChatGPT, there's a little bar, but that's still really hard because if you don't know what you don't know, what question am I going to ask? Well, there are categories of questions that probably you want to ask at work, like collaboration. How do I collaborate with Jimmy? How do I collaborate with Mary? How do I collaborate with somebody in France? How do I collaborate with somebody who's more structured or who's different than me? To leadership. What's my leader styles? What are my leadership styles? To teamwork. How does this team work together? Are they all deliberate? Are they decisive? So all the questions around leadership, teamwork, collaboration for 2 people, for 5 people, for 100 people, for performance, for quality control, manufacturing. Why is this whole manufacturing facility of 1,000 people having high defects? All being driven by the culture of an organization of the people being driven by the aggregate of each person and the sum of those people working together. And this is a tool where you can literally not just write in a question, but pick for each category, collaboration, 5 or 6 questions that all the questions are written, and it'll just write out the answer. And it is the interface that will bring this product to the world, to all companies, where they're just like Google and ChatGPT both got to 1 billion users with no marketing, not one salesperson, no website, and the 4-letter, dirty letter word for software, which makes them usable or not, no training. And it's addictive like crack. And so imagine you can unleash this on a workforce and get 100,000 people up and running in a day. And now 100,000 people get their own personal $50,000 coach of value for a few bucks a month. It is the future of how AI is going to impact the future of work. It's the future of leadership, talent development, collaboration, team, dynamics, in workflow, in a fun way. And it's AI that makes work more human. It's fun and it's transformational and it's spirituality in the workplace.
Yeah, it's basically unlocking this holy grail of how to run a company with humans that all have these soft skills and unpredictable behaviors and things like that. Right?
Some people say that soft skills are their superpower and that's why they're great leaders. And those people do advance and they're the best leaders. Now, everyone can be a great leader. Now, everyone can be a great team member. Because if you don't know yourself, you don't know how to work with others, you can't be a great team member. Imagine the basketball player who's only right-handed, who can only shoot from the baseline. Or the soccer player who's only left-footed, can only dribble with the left foot. They're not any help to themselves or the team. But if you can now become right-handed and left-handed and shoot from anywhere on the court, you're a better team member. You're a better leader, right? And so everyone has a duality and can improve, their behaviors and motives and work styles if they can understand themselves and others and work as a team. So this leads to more creativity, more innovation, more problem solving, more complexity. This will make the entire planet, every company better, make more money, and every person like their jobs more. And it'll also help match people with the right jobs for them. Imagine this tool, you can say, why is this person not happy in this job? Here's the job spec, dump it in. Here's this person. It's because you have them misaligned. This job spec is for someone who's decisive and likes to, structure, and this person's like freedom and doesn't like, and imagine hiring. We had 2,000 applicants. They all take this assessment. Okay, of the 2,000 people, who are the 3 top people for this role compared to all high performers in that role? It'll solve the recruiting conundrum. Forget LinkedIn. Forget every recruiting software you ever used. You're just right. Who are the 3 best people for this job in the 20,000 applicants? Imagine M&A for private equity. How many? 70% of M&A fails, but you acquire a company, it doesn't work. Well, now a company can just say, okay, let's upload all the psychometrics of 10,000 people, company B, and our company that's doing the acquiring, and also company C, and we have 2 companies that purchase. Which is the better company to acquire that's going to integrate better? Even though both business models are great, they both do things we need. Which are the ones that are going to integrate better? And let's map out for us which are the divisions that need more help in the integration, which ones don't. These are questions that would take, up until now, thousands of consultants from McKinsey, Bain, or BCG, and now my solution in 30 seconds answers some of the hardest questions ever known to mankind.
Wow. So it basically removes the biggest inefficiency in
Which is people.
collaboration. Right.
Which is people.
Right.
This is the answer of how to really get everyone on the same page and get the insights around your people. What is the culture of my company?
Yeah.
No one in the world has ever been able to answer that question. And that's not a temperament survey asking if you have happy people or sad people. That's not your culture. It doesn't tell you if you have quality control people or decisive and quick for a manufacturing process around quality, or a service industry like a restaurant that has people who are belonging and creating. You want a team culture, right? Like you can pay everybody $1,000 an hour at a restaurant who are all focused on money, and nobody going to that restaurant because all the service sucks.
Right.
Happy employees does not mean you're aligning with the strategy of the company. This will allow companies to truly measure culture and understand the culture of Brazil for Coca-Cola is different than Argentina, than Germany. It is the holy grail of human capital management that everyone can partake in.
Interesting. So I see also a company is like its own intelligent entity, right? That it has its own behavior pattern of existence. It's like
it'll move people around in the career track, and like you'll say, what is the roadmap for my career for the next 20 years? So this whole high turnover, right? I read a statistic that kids between the age of today graduating at 22 they already are changing jobs 10 times by the time they're 30 years old. That is horrible. That's a cancer for society, cancer for companies, cancer for the parents, and cancer for the kids. What person wants to change jobs every year? It's a nightmare for everybody. Everyone will be able to find their purpose and fulfillment by the time they're 30. Can you imagine 90% of society dies without even knowing what they're supposed to do? Now 90% of society will know what they're supposed to do, be more productive, add more to the world, and be happier. Disease, because what is disease? Cancer, all these things, unless you're drinking paint turpentine, usually cancer is because you are in fight or flight mode and you are not happy and you don't know what makes you happy. This will make you happy in the people you fall in love with, in the people you marry, in the relationships you're in the jobs you're in the relationships at work. So disease will go down because people will not have dis-ease. They will be at ease. And so this kind of like organism failure across the board in the whole world will finally get solved because people will be in the flow.
Amazing, man.
Human intelligence will make people happier. I call it the happiness app.
That's amazing. What's in the way, potential roadblocks that could prevent this from getting into everyone's hands as soon as possible? Like what do you working against? Like what's the friction?
Right? I can't figure out a way of unlocking this and showing it to enough people. Like, I believe that somebody in the world has a cure to actual cancer, but they're not the right person to bring it to the world, and they haven't figured out how to get to the head of NIH. Everything's a relationship in this world, and it sucks. And even though I went to Harvard and Wharton, I know a lot of powerful people, I have not gotten to the one person that will make this take off yet, right? And so it has been so much harder to get this product in front of people. Like to get 30 minutes with the head of HR at a company. Like sure, if it's a small startup, I mean, who cares? But there's 500 of the largest companies in the US. It's been 8 years, and I'm in front of maybe 2 of them. But those 2 are now clients. 100% of chief talent officers, CHROs, chief people officers of the largest companies in the world, Walmart, Auchan, Carrefour, Wipro, GE, if they see this product, that company will be using the product in the next 6 months. So how do you get that in front of them? And you can't pay, I don't have $1 million to go be the keynote speaker at HR Tech, right? And so so me, and how do I solve that equation? And then I would have said 5 years ago that the world wasn't ready for a consciousness tool like this at work. But in the last 5 to 6 years, we see things like mindfulness. We see things like, people's pronouns and really caring how Gen Zs feel, and trying to come to the middle where, meet every employee where they're at. This is a tool that allows for inclusion of everyone. So DEI and inclusion based on how people are as individuals, forget race and gender buckets, but down to the individual. So I think 5 years ago, I would have said corporations weren't ready for it. I believe, at least in the US, they are ready for it now. So those are me, and I think it's just me. So we're close. I'm the only bottleneck. And there's no guarantee that I figure it out. Like it's still a sludge.
And then how would that change or impact it? So with more decentralized organization of humans, like smaller teams that are not part of one conglomerate organization, they're a little bit more decentralized organizing. How would that impact your tool? I mean, would just bring the same amount of
there's
value?
more. So now that people are remote and distributed, they know each other less and less. So now, like, the stress on the system of large organizations, right? They don't know how to work together. And even a startup, you have 7 people. How do you do a startup with 7 people in 7 cities that don't know each other? This tool allows them all to feel like they've been working together for 20 years. And so it's going to help startups be better. It's going to help big companies that are all over the world be better. And it's going to help companies that have people in India and people working in Japan and people in Nigeria and people in Papua New Guinea. Now they all can understand each other, right? Like everyone will just, literally, this is like kumbaya for business.
Yeah. And all they have to do is just
take a 10-minute test, send one link to 10,000 people, and everybody takes it in one day, and everybody can now work better together, know themselves better, lead better, be better teams, and be more productive and more creative.
And could that be also extended to your personal life?
Yeah. So we have an app called My Guru for college and career, where it matches everybody with the 12,000 jobs that exist. And so you can take it and it'll rank the 10 jobs, 10 careers that are most aligned with who you are, how you think. And you can also look at your friends in high school. Like, what's the biggest thing that makes you unhappy in high school besides grades and stress? About that, it's, do I fit in and who am I? So we answer the question, who am I? First time ever self-awareness in a fun way. And then, do I fit in? It tells you how you fit in with others. You can invite friends, and it fits in how you fit in with your group. And it'll be like, oh my God, that's why this group's not like me. I think differently. I think this. Oh, wow. So I believe the greatest thing that leads to success in life, outside of self-awareness, because you need that first, and a lot of people don't get that, but let's say you get that, to succeed in a 3D world of business, it's team collaboration, it's teamwork in sports. And that is the greatest skill, more than intelligence, that leads to success in the business world and in the working world. That is not taught anywhere in high school or college. I took a course on team dynamics in business school at Wharton, and they teach it at Harvard. But why is it that the people who already understand team dynamics, who are the most successful in the world, are the only ones who freaking get access to it? So I created a free app to give to the world, and I spent $200,000 of my own money to do this app, and I don't charge a penny for it. I don't do advertising. I give it for free. I give it to every student in the world, every young person, for 13 to 25-year-olds. Anybody can take it, but it's usually more helpful for that age group, where they can take it and understand team dynamics, and they can do their classroom, they can do their sports team, they can do their group of friends. And so it's delivering team dynamics and insights around that and themselves to the world. And it helps you find jobs, helps you apply to college. We get, I think, 500 downloads a week. So 2,000 a month. And we've never spent a dime on advertising.
Downloads on what, App Store? You have it on App Store?
We have it on Apple and Android.
And
it's called My Guru for College and Career. 5 stars, and it's
cool.
500 a week. We've never spent a penny on it, other than developing it.
And what is your ultimate vision for the future in everything that you're doing? Like, what do you what excites you? What are you working towards?
The most exciting is the thing I always wanted to do since I was a kid. So I'm a Pisces, and I've always believed in astrology. And, but my right side brain, my left side brain, and my animal human who grew up in America said, "Don't talk about that." And I always knew that we got reincarnated, and I was Catholic, and I wouldn't share that with anybody. It was like, that's heresy. And I always thought, God, there's got to be a way to prove that God is real, scientifically, without a doubt.
All right.
And so I never really talked about astrology, and I never really read horoscopes. Still to this day, I don't read horoscopes either, or But the fact that you're born a certain day, you have a certain personality, I thought it'd be a great way for a system, if you have thousands and millions of souls, that everybody gets the same chance to learn the same positives and negatives and weaknesses and strengths. And like, what a great system. And then there's the Chinese layer where, depending on your year of birth, and you're trying to manage all these souls, there's another way. And I used to, all my life, like I'd go back, I'd always ask people for their birthdays just to stay in touch. And I'm 53, so like the paper based, like send letters. Like, hey, happy birthday, or a postcard. And so I had this, like, by the time I was 22, I had about 12,000 people on their birthdays.
Wow.
And anybody I spent more than 3 hours with, I'd put them in the system. It was paper. And then there was a guy named Jose Pinheiro, God bless his soul, ponytail guy, totally saw him as a hippie, in Puerto Rico, where I was working with Procter & Gamble, very left side brain, linear type company, like very American, like you got to act American, or let's call it WASP more than American. And he comes to me and goes, "Hey, Juan, I heard you spend all weekend writing postcards to people's birthdays. Is that true? Is that where you go every night? You go and go work, and you're not working on work stuff, you're working on postcards?" I'm like, "Yeah, I write to about 400 people a day for their birthday."
Wow.
I have like 12,000 people every year. I got to write their birthdays.
Damn.
He's like, "Oh, so you believe in astrology?" I'm like, "No, you're crazy. I don't believe in astrology. That's insane." And he goes, what do you mean you have all these birthdays? Like, yeah, I do it to stay in touch, not because I believe in it. Like, look, and don't say it too loud. We're at work. Like, I don't want people to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And he goes, coming out of Harvard in 1993, I made $30,000 a year. Like, I was still eating Campbell's soup, right? So he knew that I always ate Campbell's soup at lunch, and he was like a more senior guy. And he goes, look, I'll take you to a really nice restaurant, like, $20 plate place. If you bring and I had already started transferring everything into a spreadsheet because Excel had come out like in 1992 or something. So I started to put everything into a spreadsheet because like I lost my address book once, like a phone book. And like it took 2 hours, I couldn't find it. I left it in an airport. I was calling somebody in Madrid. And like, I almost got shot running through the baggage with the guys with machine guns in like late 80s to go get the address book. And I didn't care. This is my life with relationships.
Totally.
And these guys literally shot me with machine guns in Spain because there were all these terrorist attacks in the late 80s. And I was like at the Barajas airport, I think that was the airport. So I was just sprinting in to get this thing. And it was like on the top of the phone where I was calling my cousin who was living in Madrid at the time. Anyways, so I was putting in, he goes, I heard you putting in a spreadsheet. Have you ever sorted by birth? I'm like, why would I do that? That's crazy. He goes, because I can tell you which are the different signs. And because you rank everybody by if they're like best friend, girlfriend, close friend, you put a 0 to 7, or actually 0 to 6 on everybody. You rank how close they are. And we can see if there's any truth to astrology based on your system of 12,000 people. Who has 12,000 people? They know that only if they spend 3 hours with them means it's clearly only people in your life.
Yeah.
Or family members that you have no choice.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we went and we did. I thought the guy was cuckoo, and I'm like, whatever. This sucker's gonna buy my free lunch. Like, I'll do it. Free lunch for me. Like, it's not gonna show anything.
Yeah.
And this guy would proceed to sort it, and he would color code it, like, and it was unbelievable. There were certain signs like Pisces. A lot of my best friends were Pisces. All of my girlfriends or girls I liked that didn't like me back, but girls that I liked and I really were all Cancers or Scorpios. All my best male friends were all born within 1 week of Scorpio who don't even know each other. All my female best friends, as hot as they were, all 1 week apart, all were my best friends, never was interested in them, like Capricorns.
Yeah.
And then there's one sign, we're talking like 3,000 people, 1,000 people, 2,000 people.
Right.
And then one sign there's like 12 people. I mean, statistically, that's impossible. How would I in my life have thousands and then 12?
What is it? What's this?
Gemini. Oh. And he proceeds and opens up this book around astrology and goes, look, this is your life up until 25. I was 25 at the time.
Yeah.
Proves already beyond a doubt that astrology, there's something there. It doesn't explain why.
Crazy.
But look, let me read you this. Pisces are the oldest soul. They've been every single life, so they can relate to everybody. They understand everybody. That's why they're most empathetic. And Gemini are the youngest soul who don't trust anybody. And they cannot stand a Pisces because the Pisces vibration of just knowledge and understanding just goes at the core heart of a Gemini who doesn't trust anybody, doesn't understand anything, and they're scared shitless, but they have this act where they have these, quote, two faces because they're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they can't, a Pisces opens their mouth and they literally will hate the Pisces. They're like, how's this person so sure? And why do they feel so comfortable in their skin?
Yeah.
And all the people that were Gemini in my address book were family members. My brother, who we don't even speak anymore. I'll speak to him. I'm fine with him.
Yeah.
He can't stand me.
Yeah.
2 other cousins who I just have to have them in there because they're family.
Yeah.
And like, it was just fascinating. So ever since then, and to your question around what's my biggest purpose or vision, ever since that moment when Jose Pinheiro did that with me, I did believe in astrology.
Yeah.
But that wasn't enough to prove to the world because that's not scientific beyond the doubt. You need millions of people's. And I knew people's personality and I was the decider in my head of who I liked and I didn't. So that's also not scientific. So one of the things that when I downloaded Human Intelligence, I was kind of share with is like, if it plays out, this is going to be pretty audacious what I say.
Yeah.
And I do get 1 billion people on this platform at every company, every high school, every app, right?
Yeah.
We ask people to voluntarily, if they want, put their birthday.
Yeah.
Well, astrology has personality traits for every sign that are all clearly indicated. And we're getting the best reading of any person, of any other psychometric tool out there. And if you can layer 1 billion people or even 300 million people, their birthdays with their personalities, if it is correlated at all, it means that there is actually a system that based on your birth, without a doubt, you are being given experiences based on that, and that there is a greater system organizing the birth of souls, and that system is God. And so I could be the first person in the world to prove beyond a doubt that God exists. And that was shown to me in one of these ceremonies right before I launched Human Intelligence. And there's no reason why I can't be the first human on the planet before any of the other 30 billion that were ever born to actually prove that God's real. That's pretty cool.
That's crazy, man.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. But that's probably, that's the purpose. Human intelligence.
That'd be a
is
big
how
one.
you get to it.
That'd be a big one. So you wonder why I didn't have all these other purposes on the notebook?
Yeah.
I think maybe proving God exists would be a pretty good one.
It's a fairly decent.
On my tombstone.
Proving
First
that
human to prove God exists.
Wow.
Pretty good tombstone.
Wow. But you already have data though, like you already interviewed.
We do. We have over 2.5 million people.
Have you tried some?
I want to get a lot more data.
Okay. Does that mean that maybe it's not significant, or like it's not clear enough evidence that God exists yet? Because I'm sure you've done some kind of like.
Oh, for me and the company and the members of my company, we're all convinced. But for the greater public, you want to come out with more data.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 million, that sounds like a...
Well, we have 2 million people taking the assessment. We probably have about 300,000 to 400,000 who have their birthdays.
Still.
Because we make it voluntary.
Still. I mean, any kind of like scientific study, it's significant enough if it's like a few tens of thousand people take it, no?
So in this world, people have heard someone say something and the world listen.
Yeah.
Because they're rich and famous and they've succeeded.
Right.
And somebody else might have said the same thing 1,000 times before them, but because they weren't a well-known, respected person.
Right.
It's too early for me to make a statement like I prove God, and I'll be seen as like, a malcreant,
Yeah.
Can you think, and can any person on this podcast think of a Hispanic person in this country they've ever heard from that they were like, wow, that person's brilliant? We're the largest percent population in this country, and there's not one single role model for my 2 kids. And so most people don't think I'm going to learn something from a Hispanic person. It's horrible. Okay. I also want to be the first Hispanic that actually shows the world that you can be successful with a Hispanic first name in this country. And so I want human intelligence to blow it out.
Out of proportion, like completely.
Where I'm seen as Jeff Bezos, I'm seen as Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. And then when I say something, people are going to listen. Because right now, I have to spend the first 10 minutes on every video call realizing that the person's looking at me like, oh, well, I'm on this call. This guy, Juan, who is he? He's I never learned anything from a Hispanic person.
Right.
And then they realize like, oh my God, this call's amazing. This guy's amazing. Oh my God, you're so smart. You're so educated. Oh, your product's so amazing. So, the fact that I lose 10 minutes in every call, just gaining credibility because of my background. I think telling the world that I just proved that God exists, I need a better platform
of
credibility
because that being that lent on
because it's a big one for the world as well.
But personal brand, like just invest in developing a personal brand, and whenever people look you up, they know everything about you. Like they need to know.
People don't. Do you think people look up a guy named Juan before they get on a call? Let me go back a step.
Yeah.
Do you think people look up anybody before they get on a call?
Some people probably do.
For what you do, you're really good at it.
Yeah.
You really are quality, so you will look up and understand a human being before you interview them. I'm a headhunter for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
I interviewed 10,000 people a year.
Right.
I would guesstimate, and I could tell, you can tell when somebody's looked you up.
Yeah.
1 in 1,000 people actually looked up my profile.
Yeah.
Because when I started asking tough questions and like, well, you're a recruiter, why are you asking me that? How dare you? Like, I'm like, did you look me up? Because I'm going to ask hard questions.
Yeah.
Because I've had the job you have, and I've actually managed people like you. You're actually my subordinate. And most executives, when they hear a recruiter say that, because most recruiters have not had those roles.
Right.
It became very apparent that they never looked me up. So most people who want a job and need to go through you and need you, don't take the 30 seconds to look at your LinkedIn. So I can assure you,
that's fair.
I could create a body of work, a website about Juan. I could make my LinkedIn perfect. People just are lazy.
But man, it's not really about people looking you up. It's people finding your content because it's valuable. And then,
but who's going to like even podcasts? Like, there's 5 podcasts. I have time for one. I'm a consumer. I'm out there.
Yeah.
And there's one by John Smith, Pikaluku Kuki from Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Juan Betancourt from either Brazil or Cuba or Miami. Tom Johnson, Mary Welsh, or 99% of the population are going to go with the one that they just assume. They're not going to go with the guy who has a Nigerian name, the woman who has a French name. Like,
but it doesn't exactly work that way, man.
It does. People have constrained time, and they only go with what they have time for, and it's subconscious bias.
Do you spend time on YouTube? Like ever? Like, is that a thing? Like, because most people, I mean, yeah. So you don't need to know who is this channel for. You're looking at thumbnails and you're deciding, do I want to? It's kind of like shopping for like food, maybe at a store. You're just looking at.
But when it's content delivered by a human being, you're gonna look at the person's name.
Not at first. No, at first, you won't care. You all you need is a piece of information that will serve you in your life.
If that's the only content you have time for, and it's the only thing served up,
yeah,
time is finite in terms of like what we have time for. I mean, how many podcasts you listen? How many YouTube?
Yeah,
and if you have 5 things to pick from, which at every moment people have more than 5.
Sure,
you're gonna pick from what is the best odds to be interesting. And if there's 5 of the same content, and you put the names the way I described them to you, the same exact topic,
sure.
you're going to go with the names that are more familiar to you. They do this in voting. People, they go in the voting box.
Yeah.
People have changed their names in districts to have a name more aligned to the voting, and they win. And then 4 years before they lost, but a different name. Like I don't even think this is racism.
Totally.
It's just subconscious bias. Like,
I can tell you for sure that oftentimes when people go on YouTube, the discovery mechanism is so good that they know that a lot of the videos that they're going to click on are going to be pretty great, even though they might not know.
But the YouTube's also putting to the top of the list YouTube videos that already have certain quantity of views, and they've already been scored.
But the views are being accumulated based on the usefulness, how applicable that is to and packaging and stuff.
So you're saying, even let's say there's a YouTube video that only has 300 people because people don't like the person's name.
Totally, you can go viral.
It's so useful. It could become like
100%.
10 out of 10.
100%.
And because it's always scored 10 out of 10, it's going to now get pushed out even more. And,
And algorithm, next time you post something, they already know, oh, this guy posted something.
So maybe I should put all my podcasts on YouTube. Actually,
100%. Yeah, you should definitely put more of your thoughts out on the.
Well, no, because I've done probably 100 podcasts in the last 5 years, if not, 4 years.
But I mean, the hosts recorded them, right?
Yeah, but they're only on like LinkedIn, or they're not on YouTube.
Yeah.
We should put
YouTube is a visual platform, so it's better to have a.
But some of these are video podcasts.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I should put those on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I'll maybe I'll look at them and I can give you my assessment, because if they're kind of not very good quality, that might not be as useful.
Oh, interesting.
At first, yeah, but. In any way, you have so much to say. You should definitely be sharing your voice and building the personal brand, because that's your leverage. Personal brand is going to be the total leverage. A lot of people are going to listen to you over time, just because you've accumulated the what's it called, the capital, like trust capital. Imagine that every time you share something, and that's basically the case. Every time we communicate with you, there's something insightful coming out of your mouth. And so I know that because I already interacted. And so thousands of more people are going to keep recognizing that.
Offline, let's follow up on that. I'd like to learn that.
Yeah. Listeners, thank you for your patience in this last little segment. I think this is also a great place for us to kind of wrap up the conversation. It's longer than but I really didn't want to finish it just because there's so much there to cover, and maybe we do part 2 sometime in the future. I would love that. Maybe also give you a platform to share more of your ideas and use this footage in whatever way you want to also promote.
Down the road, we should definitely do one on the tips, tricks, and lessons of being a startup entrepreneur.
Okay.
What I have learned in the last 8 years, I could save millions of people who are entrepreneurs heartache and loss of a lot of money.
I love that. I'd love to.
And it's just because I failed for 8 years, so I have that much of lessons to teach. And I've now succeeded. So one thing's failing. I don't think you learn only on failing. You learn on failing and figuring out how to succeed.
I get it. Yeah.
Like, I don't want my kid learning from somebody just only fail. But if you can reinvent yourself and pivot enough and learn why you failed, then you will succeed by definition.
yeah, maybe any last thoughts, any last opportunity to send a message to the listeners before we close it. I don't know, anything.
Everyone should look at spirituality as important as love or career in their life. I think most people, when they talk about the 5 big things in their life, it's like, career, money, relationships, love, family. As important, and what actually would drive the optimization of all 5 of those is spirituality. And it is its separate bucket, and it takes time, and there is learning, and there is no linear path, and everybody has their own spirituality and their own direction to learn. And it's all from within, and all the answers are within you. And so the Western world does not teach us that spirituality is so important, other than religion. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so biggest piece of advice, spirituality is the portal to success in anything you want in life.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Awesome, man. This is great. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around, and until the next one. Cheers. Yeah.